Hey guys, how's it going? In the previous video of this anime, you saw that Lucio continued his training, working hard every day, over there. Today, we'll see that he got even stronger and even confronted the leader of a corrupt healing clinic. Seriously, you have to see the face that the old corrupt guy made. But without further ado, let's get to the recap. Today's video starts with Broad giving Lucio a day off. Lucio, thinking, says he's never had a day off and doesn't know what to do with his free time. Broad asks if he'd like to go to the butcher shop to learn how to butcher some monster meat, and Lucio thinks it's a good idea. When he arrives at the designated room, he comes face to face with the butcher. The butcher, named Galba, welcomes Lucio and introduces himself as the brother of Gulgar, the guild's cook who supplies Lucio with Substance X every day, despite not looking like it. They soon get to work, and the first monster is a type of boar. Galba tells Lucio to pay close attention because soon he'll be the one doing the cutting. Galba swiftly slices the boar with incredible agility, and Lucio becomes uncomfortable watching him do it. Then, Galba grabs a horned rabbit and says it's Lucio's turn. Lucio is startled but has no choice, he'll have to do it one way or another. He starts doing it as Galba instructs, feeling a bit disgusted, and he never imagined that the food he's been eating all these days is prepared this way. After he finishes the lesson, he goes to Gulgar and seems somewhat depressed. Lucio tells him that he's now much more grateful for the food he eats every day. The next day, Lucio walks through the hallway, trying to think of something to do on his second day off. While he's walking, he's grabbed by the guild girls. They take him to a room and strip him. Wait, wrong anime. They take him to a room and tell him he needs to learn about that world, but the one in charge of teaching him is only Nana Ella. The others were just teasing our young healer. Nana Ella starts teaching him about the world they're in. She shows him the map of the continent they're on and points out the city of Meritoni, which is where they are now. She explains that the Shurul Kingdom is famous for its healer guilds and is where the sacred city of Shurul is located, which is the headquarters of all the guilds. She adds that Shurul is the only place where slavery is abolished. Lucio thanks the gods for ending up there. And so, he alternates between hard training and studying with Nana Ella. He continues this routine until he realizes that half of the year has already passed. At some point, the guild girls notice that Lucio has become muscular, and his old clothes barely fit him anymore. Nana Ella decides to take him shopping for new clothes, and they do so. Lucio says he's set with his new clothes for a long time and is happy to make his first purchases in that world. However, on his way back, he hears a familiar voice screaming. Lucio doesn't think twice and runs to see what happened. When he arrives in an alley, he sees Monica, the attendant from the healing guild, lying on the ground injured and bleeding. Lucio quickly takes her to a room in the Adventurers Guild and administers first aid. Later, the girl wakes up and asks what happened. Lucio tells her that he found her unconscious in an alley in the middle of the city. Lucio asks if someone tried to harm her, and Monica says it was probably the case. She suspects she was targeted because she had recently spoken out publicly against the practices of Botticelli, the leader of the most famous healing clinic in the kingdom. Monica believes she suffered retaliation since Botticelli has been charging exorbitant fees, and if the patient can't pay, he sells them as slaves. What a scoundrel, I'm sure he's bald. Lucio tells her that she might be in danger of further attacks, so she should stay at the Adventurers Guild for a while until things calm down. Later, Monica approaches Lucio, feeling embarrassed, and thanks him for saving her life. She asks with a sad face how much she owes him for it. Lucio reassures her, saying she just needs to leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel, and everything will be fine. Just kidding. In reality, he tells her that she has already done more than enough for him since he arrived in the city, so there's no need to repay him for the healing, leaving the girl relieved as she thought she'd go bankrupt. Some time later, Monica decides to stay permanently at the Adventurers Guild since she really likes the place. Now, we have a little time skip, and 2 months have passed. One day, Broad arrives frantically looking for Lucio. He says there are 3 adventurers about to be in dire straits, and he needs to go quickly to help them, and Lucio joins him. They rush to the scene, and Lucio sees the 3 adventurers. He decides to help Basura, who is losing a lot of blood and in critical condition. Fortunately, he manages to save Basura and moves on to the next adventurer. However, Lucio is now out of mana and feels weak. At this moment, Broad gives him a potion, and he recovers. He then proceeds to the next adventurers and fortunately manages to save the 3 who were in worse condition. Afterward, Lucio collapses from exhaustion and later wakes up. He laments not being able to save everyone and decides to study harder and train even harder out of respect for those who didn't make it. After this, we have another small time skip, and it's been a year since Luciel arrived in this new world. He talks to Brod, stating that he will find a job to pay the guild fees and thanks him for all the training, even though he still feels it wasn't enough. Then, he goes to the healing guild and speaks with Kururu, who seems quite discouraged. She asks Luciel what he wants, and he says he's there to request the renewal of his healer's license. She accepts and asks for his card, which he hands over, and she goes into a room. Some time later, she returns, desperate, and asks what he did during the past year because his stats have improved significantly. Luciel explains that he spent that time training at the Adventurers Guild to become stronger both physically and as a healer. Kururu says she understands and informs him that she can upgrade his rank from F to C. However, she mentions there are both good and bad sides to this. The good part is that he can buy new magic books to improve his skills, but the bad part is that his monthly fees will increase significantly. Luciel feels a bit depressed, saying he doesn't have much money, but Brod appears behind him and pays all the fees for him. Brod takes the opportunity to invite Luciel to stay permanently at the Adventurers Guild for training until he's ready. While he's there, Brod will pay him a fair salary, and he can continue training as usual. Later, Brod invites him to dinner. When Luciel arrives at the guild's restaurant, he finds all the adventurers waiting for him, celebrating his return. However, not everything is perfect. Luciel is presented with a gigantic dose of Substance X, and he drinks it all at once. Afterward, they all go to eat, but no one approaches Luciel because he's reeking from that dreadful drink. However, some time later, the adventurers he saved earlier come up to him. The leader of their group approaches Luciel and asks him a question in a hushed voice, inquiring if Luciel likes something between men over there. Luciel responds that he spent the last year solely focused on getting stronger in training and, furthermore, if he hits on the guild girls, Brod will cut his head off. The guys say they understand and mention that they'll take him to a house of ladies later, if you catch my drift. Luciel gets very embarrassed and asks if there are really places like that in the city. Then, Monica appears and approaches Luciel. She expresses how happy she is that he's returned, and they start talking. There's a bit of a romantic atmosphere between them, and they almost kiss but get shy and stop. The next day, while Luciel is training, an old man barges into the guild asking for him. We see that this old man is Botticulli, the leader of the largest healing clinic in the city. He confronts Luciel and angrily questions what on earth he's doing because, thanks to him, the old man's business has taken a hit since fewer people are seeking his services. Take a look at the old man, didn't I tell you he was bald? The old man insists that Luciel should go to his clinic and work there, almost ordering the boy to do so. However, Luciel refuses, and the old man becomes furious. The old man then claims it's an official order out of pity, but Luciel questions what kind of pity involves him giving up his job. The old man, still seething with anger, says that since Luciel came to the city, the number of patients seeking his clinic has plummeted, and he must pay for it. The old man is fuming, but Brod arrives at that very moment and threatens to personally inspect his clinic if they don't leave. The old man becomes very afraid and hurries away. Then, Brod tells Luciel that more people may come after him on behalf of Botticulli, and he must prepare for real combat. He emphasizes that from now on, it won't just be training, it will be a real fight, and he hands Luciel a shield and a sword. Luciel continues his training, working hard day after day, alternating between sword, spear, and bow and arrow, all while studying magic to learn new healing abilities. Afterward, we see Botticulli, and he appears quite pleased. We can see that he's sending some kind of letter, requesting that the high-ranking members of the healing guilds send Luciel to a guild far away from this location. And that's how today's episode concludes. So, do you think the old man's plan will succeed, and Luciel will have to go far away? Let me know in the comments what you think will happen. Also, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel to support me. And finally, just for those who stayed until the end, I've put an amazing video on the final screen. It tells the story of Haruto, a boy who was discarded and reincarnated into a world of fantasy and magic. He was incredibly lucky to be born into the royal family, but his parents thought he was a weakling and abandoned him in the forest. Check it out, it's amazing, okay? Until next time, bye.